Welcome to the HawkCast with your host, AJ Hawk.
Jordy Nelson joins us. Jordy, farmer, football player, everything. I think people know a little bit about your story, but I appreciate you coming on. Busy time of the year for you. You're entering your 10th season?
Yes.
10 seasons. I guess you can say in your mind, is this in your body, is this 9 because you missed one due to the ACL tear?
I think so. I think that can play a role in it. Even though there's a lot of obviously rehab and a lot of work going into that, but you also do get a year off of the pounding and the hitting during games. So we'll see if it adds on to the end of the career or not. But I mean, I don't think you'd ever really truly know.
How do you feel? I know people talk about ACLs. They say you comeback player of the year last year, had a gigantic year the season after you tore it. And now I hear people say all the time, oh, just wait, you don't feel normal until your second year. So do you feel that much better now?
I feel a lot of the same, to be honest with you. I think once I got back into the season and about midway point, because I didn't do a lot of stuff in training camp last year going into the week 1 against Jacksonville, because I had the classic hiccup or another little procedure that a lot of people don't know about. So by missing camp, like my camp was like the first month of the season in order to get prepared and into the game flow of things. So by the end of the year, I felt great. I think I feel the same. I think I just by able to go through off season and training camp, I'll be more into game shape come week 1 instead of working into game shape.
No, what were you saying? A classic hiccup last year in training camp? What was that?
Well, that's what I called it because I didn't want people to know about it. But I had a slight scope in one of my body parts that prevented me from doing the first month of training camp.
So you missed camp, but you made it out there for week 1.
Yeah, I missed, I think, the first 4 or 5 weeks. I started practicing about a week and a half before the beginning of the regular season. So we knew all along I'd be ready for week 1. It was just how quick I'd be able to get back on the practice field.
How did that feel, though, coming off of all this recovery, the crazy amount of work you put in with Nate and Flea and the amazing training staff there in Green Bay, to where you get back on the field and you're like, oh, man, as you say, a hiccup to put you got to get knocked out and clean something up.
Yes.
How did that feel like having that setback?
That was frustrating because, like you said, you put in a lot of work. We had surgery, what was it, beginning of September on the knee, and so we rehabbed all the way through, and then it wasn't until June that the hiccup happened. And I was ready to go. I was ready to go during OTAs. I felt good. I was ready to attack training camp, and then just something crazy happened. So it was one of those things that it was a little frustrating because you worked so hard to get back to where the point you were prepared for training camp, and then you had another setback. So but we were able to stay focused, move on. At least it wasn't anything major.
Yeah, you don't seem a guy that really gets flustered. Have you always been that way, that you just kind of stay with your plan?
Yeah, I'm not one, like there's things you can control and things you can't control. And the things that I can't control, I don't really worry about. If it's tearing the knee up or anything else that just happens while playing this game. I kind of said after I did my ACL, I gave myself a day or two to pout about it and be frustrated and whine. And then it was time to move on and refocus on what I had to do that year. Instead of playing, it was rehabbing. So I give myself a little bit to have a little pity party, but then it's time to move on about a day or two later.
Now, I remember that was my first year not in Green Bay when you did tear your ACL. I think I was at a preseason game in the locker room maybe for the Cincinnati Bengals, and word spread even in the Bengals locker room that you went down. It was like what happened on the play where you tore your ACL?
I just jumped up and nothing high, just came off the ground a little bit, catch the ball, and I tried to plant as I landed, and I guess kind of landed locked-legged, and planting and trying to turn at the same time just was did it at the exact wrong time to tear the ACL. I got up, I jogged off the field, I kind of walked it off on the sideline while the guys finished the drive. Was lightly jogging on the sideline. I've always said if it was a regular season game, I probably would have eventually went back in and never let Doc look at it. But luckily for me, it was preseason, so I knew I was done anyway, and he looked at it, and he knew right away. But very thankful that he didn't tell me on the field. He had me go get a little x-ray on it and go in the training room in the stadium or in Pittsburgh's locker room, and that's where he informed me. So it was a little emotional there, and like you said, it definitely sent shockwaves through our team when they came in at halftime because, no one expected that either, the way I jogged out the field and, looked fine. But, yeah, it was kind of a heartbreaking halftime.
So that was the first preseason game, correct?
It was the second one. It was week 2
Against Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
Do you blame the field?
I don't. I think it's a fluke accident. So, and I've always said if I can't jump and land, then I got a lot of issues going on.
Now, what would have happened, though, honestly, if that was a regular season game? Do you really think you would have checked yourself back into the game and tried to run a route?
I think so. I think I would have jogged it off on the sideline. Like I said, I jogged off the field. I mean, maybe had a little limp, but by the time 10 minutes went by, the pain was gone. I didn't have any pain when I was walking into the locker room to get x-rayed or get checked out again. And I think I would have tried to play. I think Nate, like you said, our athletic trainer, and Flea, I think they told me I would have tried to stop and then just would have fell straight over. So then I'm sure there had been a possibility of tearing other ligaments. So I think it was, I mean, obviously there's the blessing in disguise there that it was preseason. And obviously when you have something like that, you kind of know you're done for the day and get it checked out and see what happened.
So who was your first call from the locker room there?
To my wife, Emily. And it was a tough one. And I don't even think I made it through the conversation before I started crying. And she knew right away when she heard the tears or felt the tears to the phone. She said, "Did you tear it?" And I was like, "Yep." And that's all I could really get out. So I know there's a lot of unknown. Obviously, when you see someone go down like that on a non-contact play, that's what a lot of people think right away. And obviously, that's what happened.
Now, when Doc McKenzie there was doing like how they manipulate your knee when they're checking for ligament damage, were you like studying his eyes? I remember I would always study him, like trying to get a read on what he's doing.
I wasn't. When they checked it out on the field, I was laying on the table just looking, up into the sky. I wasn't worried about it. That was the crazy thing. I didn't think it was much at all because the way people always react or seem to react would be a lot more painful. And I didn't think I'd be able to get up and run off the field. So he was checking the knee out. I didn't really feel any pain when he was doing that, but afterwards talking to him and Nate and Flea, they said they could tell just by the movement in the knee that I had done it instantly. I think Flea said he looked straight up into the sky because he knew, he's like, oh, man, there it went. But they did a good job of hiding it because even when Nate and I walked into the locker room to go get an x-ray, I remember walking along the end zone, getting ready to go up the tunnel. I was talking to him and like just rubbing like the back of my knee, like, what do you think it would be? It's just, I mean, it's nothing much. And he's like, I don't know, it might be some cartilage or something, not a big deal. So he played it off as well. So there's some good actors. But again, I'm extremely thankful for that because I didn't want to find that news out on the sideline in front of, 60,000 people and all my teammates and everything.
So how does that, your first time out running, that's always the people talk about coming off ACLs. It's like the mental thing. Yeah, it's stable. The doc tells you you're good to go. But then like making that first aggressive cut always seems to be a big hurdle for guys.
Yeah, I think with mine not being like on like where I'm running and cutting, and it was just like jumping up and landing, I think I was able to overcome that block a little bit easier. We did a lot of, you slowly progress through it. It, but obviously we have an Alter G, which is a treadmill that you can kind of zip yourself into that they blow up and you can take your body weight off. So, I started running probably with like 20-30% of my body weight and you slowly build up. But the moment Doc gave me the clear, and I think it was a week or two before the preseason or postseason that year, we went over to our indoor facility and ran. And I was running 50s and probably was easily running 70-80%. And Doc was yelling at me to slow down, and it felt great. It was one of those things that, if we wouldn't have been on IR, we probably would have possibly tried it, at the end of the postseason, but that probably wouldn't have been smart either.
Now, I like how you say we. You remind me of Jordan Spieth, the golfer. He speaks at we himself and his caddy. Is that a conscious effort?
It's natural. It is a we. Between me, Nate, Flea, Doc, it was a long journey together. They did a great job. Obviously, Doc did the surgery here in Green Bay. Fully trusted him. He did a great job. He's got a beautiful looking scar. You can hardly even see it, which is lovely. I'm glad. I'm thankful for that. But Nate and Flea, the three of us grinded at it every day. They did a good job of mixing up the routine to where I never got bored or, in a rut of doing the same exercises. And we just kept doing it. And we were on each other. They were on me. I was on them to continue to push me. And obviously Doc was the Mr. Conservative that he is and trying to keep us slowing down. But It was a group effort. I'm very thankful for what those guys did, and not even only just physically, mentally, keeping you fresh, keeping you into it, not letting you get down, not letting you get frustrated with it. So we got a great group of guys here in Green Bay that do a great job.
Did that alter your normal off-season plans of going back to the farm and working the fields and herding up the cattle with your brother?
No, because with the ACL, I was, as much rehab as I could do. We came back a little bit early before training camp that year, but I still went back for 3 or 4 weeks, like I do every off season, to work on the farm, help my brother out. It's perfect timing. It's right in the middle of wheat harvest, so it's a very busy time. So I get to go out and drive the combine and cut some wheat and kind of get away from football and all the craziness that being an NFL player can bring.
Is that something? As far as I know, you drive the combine. I don't know much about it. I was lucky enough to go back and take my family, and we visited you on the farm, and I got to mess around trying to get some cattle into different move them from place to place, and slop through the mud and the cow manure with your brother. And I got to see some true professionals in action with you guys. Are you like on horses moving around? Like, how involved are you?
Yeah. My brother's gotten more involved with the horses. When I was a kid, we always had 4-wheelers. He's gotten more active with the horses. He does some little ranch rodeo stuff, but he's learned that the horses are more efficient than what we are on our feet and on 4-wheelers. So he's started using those more. I was just back this off season, and we went out, and there's probably 250 head of cattle out in this one pasture, and we had to take 100 and some odd bulls off of it. And there was 3 of us on horseback, pushing them all to the catch pen and then sorting them off. So it's fun to do it that way. It's kind of the old school way, but those horses are impressive. The way they can move, the way they can actually read cattle and what they're going to do. They can cover a lot of ground and do some great things. So it's fun to have it as well.
Now, do you have any Gomers out there?
We do have a Gomer, yes. Or we did. I honestly don't know if we do anymore, but we definitely did growing up. And
please explain what a Gomer is to the uneducated.
Well, let's go back to where this conversation started.
Yes, please.
That way they just don't think this is a random topic. But obviously we're out in Ohio for your retirement party, which was a great time. And your wife did an excellent job of throwing a great weekend. But this was after a long round of golf and a few drinks at the house that we're sitting out by a fire. And I don't even know who brought it up. Was it you or was it Brady?
It was probably Brady, because I don't think I didn't know much about a Gomer until this night.
Well, yeah. Well, they started asking about what we do on the farm. And the one thing that we kind of specialize in, I guess, is we artificially inseminate our cattle. So we have a Black Angus cow-calf herd that my dad and my brother artificially inseminate by taking sperm from other bulls that are then frozen or whatever, and they're able to do the process. But what you're getting at is the Gomer, which is a heat-detecting bull that for us was a Jersey bull that had been surgically realigned. The bull's penis was surgically realigned so it couldn't impregnate a cow.
And exactly how does that happen?
The surgery?
Yeah. Do you guys take part in this?
No, we buy it at a sale barn. So
but what is the reason? Why do you have a Gomer?
Okay, so we have to know.
Oh, I lost you for a second. Hold on, I lost you real quick. I'm sorry, lost you for a few seconds. You just start that top.
You good? Okay.
Yeah. What's the reason to have a Gomer?
Okay, so for us in the breeding process, we need to know when a cow's in heat. Once the cow is in heat, we breed them 12 hours later. So female cows will ride each other if they're in heat. Just they sense that, but also obviously a Gomer bull will do that as well. And I was just freshening up knowing that we were going to talk about this, and they were explaining that you want a younger, more aggressive bull to be your Gomer because they'll be more active and go out there. And so everything works the same. Like they can sense a cow in heat. They think they're going to impregnate them. So they'll ride the cow, but yet the penis is realigned to where it comes out the side. And
Gomer's coming out like his just at a straight 90-degree angle, right?
Yeah, kind of out of its stomach. So when it mounts from behind, it can't insert. So there are different ways. I looked that up as well. There are different ways. Ours was surgically realigned. They can't give like a bull a vasectomy, and therefore it can't impregnate. But that allows us to know that the cow's in heat. we catch the cow, we'll breed it. If we catch it in the morning, we'll breed it at night. If we catch it at night, we'll breed it in the morning. So it allows us just to have kind of a heat detector out there of when a cow comes in heat.
So do most farms have a Gomer on staff?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I've only seen ours. So, and we always had growing up, we had a Jersey. So it was obviously our cows were black. The Black Angus is a great herd that we have, but a Jersey is more of a brown colored and it had horns. So it really stuck out. So it was easy to find the Gomer. And then obviously the cows that were around it were the ones that were in heat.
Now, have you ever had like anyone from PETA reach out and say this is inhumane?
No, they might now, but I don't think we have it anymore anyway. So,
oh, the Gomer's gone.
I believe so. He made it. He went to town, if you know what I mean.
So he went to the slaughterhouse.
Possibly, yes.
Does a Gomer go for more money or less if they're on the auction block?
Oh man, that is a good question. Probably a little bit less, just because like ours was a Jersey, so a Jersey being a fat cow or a fat steer would probably bring less than an Angus steer. So probably a little bit less would be my guess, and they're usually not as heavy. So.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I just thank you for clearing that up for me and for a lot of the people that are listening or watching on YouTube, because somehow this topic got brought up. So you were referencing my wife had this big surprise retirement party for me back in Columbus, and a bunch of you guys came in town. Super, super thankful for all of you guys coming in from Green Bay and all over. But yeah, I remember we were sitting out at the fire. We played golf at Muirfield on Saturday. Everyone had a great time. It seemed like. We're just hanging out by the fire. People were smoking cigars. People had a couple drinks. And then all of a sudden there's like not like a hush came over the crowd, I feel like. And it was Jordy's out there holding court explaining Gomers to people.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people that haven't ever been around farms, they get interested in what we do. And obviously artificially inseminating cattle is something that I think a lot of people probably don't expect to hear, let alone think that we do it. So, yeah, then there's a lot of questions. And I had to keep everyone quiet and kind of give my presentation.
You did. No one. It was. I think it's news to most people that you got cows with a dong coming out of their belly, taking a hard left turn.
Yes, it's a little different.
I think I asked you that night, like, who was the vet or whoever or the crazy farmer that performed the first procedure to make a Gomer?
I have no idea, but I don't know if they would want to claim that or not, if you would be the one that would do that. I mean, obviously, I don't know who even would have thought of just needing one for that instance. So I'm sure one thing led to the other.
I'm sure it's probably cheaper than a vasectomy as well. I can't imagine a vasectomy on a cow is cheap.
I can't imagine surgery on a cow is cheap.
Yeah, let alone realigning the situation. So yeah, man, that's an interesting life you live. The dual lives you live, I guess, your time in Green Bay as one of the best receivers in the NFL, and then you go home and you're working the fields. When you say you go back for that wheat harvest, what are you doing? Like, what's your daily schedule?
Yeah, so in the prime of wheat harvest, I'll still get up and work out. I just go to our high school there. We redid the weight room there a few years ago, so we got a nice weight room going on down there that I'm able to do everything that the Packers send home in our little booklet of a workout. So I go lift and run in the morning, and then by 10, 11 o'clock, I'm in the combine, which is a big, obviously, machine that harvests the wheat for us. And I'll drive that for close to 12 hours a day. And it's not that stressful. You just kind of sit in an air-conditioned tractor, listen to country, or air-conditioned combine, listen to country music, and control a 35 to 40-foot head that's eating up the wheat and putting it through the combine. So there's a lot of focus, but not very much manual labor.
Now, do you think maybe whenever you're done playing, you'll get more involved with the manual labor and everything, or do you think you'll stay in the combine?
Well, the combine, that aspect only lasts for a couple weeks, if that. Like this year, we didn't have very much wheat, so we were done in a couple days. But the great thing that I love best about farming is it has its seasons, and every day is a different day of what to do. You have your harvest seasons. If it's wheat harvest in the summer, they're chopping silage and corn right now, as I was talking to my dad on the phone last night. So that's their fall harvest, and then they'll eventually move into the soybeans. But then come wintertime, it's dealing with cattle or there's a lull in the summer of the harvest, and you got to fix fence or do maintenance on machines or bale hay. So it all varies the time of year, each day. You could be sitting in a tractor all day working ground, never breaking a sweat, or then one day you'll be out square baling alfalfa or prairie hay, and you'll be loading a wagon full of 100 miniature or small square bales and moving those around in 100 and some degree heat and sweating like crazy and tired at the end of the day.
How many acres does the Nelson family? I guess let's say the Nelson, your wife's family as well. Like, how many acres do you guys own back there?
Oh man, my family. So between me, my brother, my dad, and my grandpa, we're pushing probably around 5,000 acres. And I think my in-laws probably have another couple thousand acres, depending on what he owns and what he rents when he farms. So there's a decent group. My in-laws, my father-in-law, he farms about 20 minutes north of where we're at. So, but I'm sure one day we'll be up there as well.
Yeah, when we were, my wife and I think I had 2 kids at the time when we came back there. We went over to dinner at your in-laws, and then your father-in-law he showed up an hour or 2 late because like, oh, he's still out working. He was driving the combine. It might have been wheat season when I was there.
Yeah. Yep. There's times of years that it can get late. I know my wife's family, they used to always have a big harvest dinner at the end of harvest because it's early in the morning to late at night. I think a lot of it was they never really saw their dad because Emily and the girls didn't really go up and help out and maybe take them lunch or whatever. But so then at the end of the wheat harvest, they'd throw a big old, feast at dinner time and kind of celebrate the season of harvest and getting dad back home for a little bit.
So what happens in the winter?
You kind of lay low. A lot of maintenance, a lot of chores. Like for us, we bring all our cows in on stock, so we got to feed them and make sure they got food. During the summers, they're able to be out on grass in the pasture and kind of manage themselves out there with the grass out in the pastures and stuff. So, and the thing about winter too, like the days are shorter, so there's not that many hours to really work just because the sun's not up as long. So, but you do some maintenance stuff, you do your chores to make sure the cattle are fed, and for us that's our biggest breeding seasons, probably in December sometime, depending on when we can synchronize them so they all kind of come in heat at the same time. So that's the big thing there, is the breeding and checking to make sure they're bred.
What would have happened if you told your dad, either you tell him now or you told him when you were in high school, like, hey, Dad, that's not for me. I'm not gonna be farming once I'm in the league. I'm not coming back and doing this.
I think it'd be a shock to the system. I think it'd probably make my brother more disappointed than anyone because I don't know. He loves it. Obviously that's what he does for a living too. He lives and dies farming. But they'd be disappointed. I would be disappointed, to be honest with you. When I work with my brother, we have a lot of fun. Sometimes it's a lot of hard work, but a lot of times it's fun and some BS as well. So, it's one of those things. But we're definitely going back. I got 2 boys. One's 7 and one's going to be 3 at the end of December. So, I want them out there. I think it's a great way to grow up. If they want to do it or not, they're going to do it as kids just because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of discipline. You got to take pride in your work, and so I think it's a great way to grow up. And then if they decide to do it after high school or college or not, that's up to them.
Now, pivoting quick to football, what was crazy to me is that you went to Kansas State, but you were a walk-on. Like, were you a late bloomer or what? Because anything I know, like, you dominated everything in high school. Why did they not give you a scholarship right off the bat?
Probably a couple reasons. Late bloomer, I guess you could say, or I went to a small school in Kansas that a lot of people don't know about. K-State did recruit me. I went on an official visit and stuff, but K-State has a very good reputation of getting a bunch of walk-ons from Kansas. It's a great program there. Coach Snyder has done it twice. Had 2 great turnarounds for that university, and so. It was one of those things. I think they kind of were just kind of sitting back hoping I would walk on and they wouldn't have to waste a scholarship on me or give me a scholarship. So, but I decided to walk on. I had 2 offers. They were both to Division II schools in Kansas, Washburn and Emporia State. But I figured if I was going to go play football somewhere, I was going to go for it all. Go to a big time program at that time. They had gone to multiple bowl games in a row. I think actually my first year there, we ended up playing U in Ohio State down in the Fiesta Bowl. So we were very good, and figured I'd go for broke, go to the best program I knew, and see what happened.
Yeah, you guys had L. Roberson at the quarterback, and Darren Sproles was playing tailback.
Yes, absolutely.
You had studs everywhere you looked. You guys were really, really good. I know that now. And then you go, obviously, have a huge career there, and you were a second round pick to the Packers, and going on your 10th season. Was that like when you were a kid working the farms, or even at K-State? Like, was the NFL even like a thought in your mind?
No, I mean, besides every kid's dream, I mean, of being a professional athlete. I honestly never thought it. Even when I was playing at K-State my last couple of years, I think my junior year, we were 5-7, and my junior year, we were like 7-6, and my senior year, we were 5-7. So then in the back of my head, like, oh, I'm only playing because we're not very good. If this would have been back like my first couple of years there, I probably wouldn't be playing because we're a lot better. So I kind of always had that second guessing in my head, I guess, if I was actually that good or we were just not that good and I was able to play. But I think towards the end of my senior year, I started getting All-American honors, was up for the Blitnikoff, and that's when it kind of hit home that there's an opportunity, but still to even get drafted, in the second round, I wasn't expecting that, but it happened. So,
do you think people, guys you play against, underestimate you when they see you line up against them?
Yes, I've been told that. So
why do you think?
So now you're really trying to get controversial here.
No, I'm saying, like, I think it's partly too because, like, your unassuming nature, like, you're not. Let's be real. Like, when you think of stud receivers, they're usually pretty loud, pretty it's controversial. Whether
Right.
they yell at quarterbacks, want to get in fights, have this crazy demeanor, and you don't really carry that.
Right. I think that's part of it. I keep to myself. I don't do a lot of trash talking or showboating. But I mean, I've had our defensive coach here, Joe Witt, tell me that he warns the guys when they come in that I'm not the big, slow white guy that they probably think I'm going to be. So, but you'd think after 10 years they would have figured that out by now, but hopefully they don't.
I think they figured it out by now, Jordy. Maybe your first 2 years, they had to be like, really? You can't be that fast. Like, I mean, this film must be sped up.
Yeah, so I've had some of those conversations on the field with some DBs of the wow, you really are fast type thing. So,
yeah, do you feel like you still are as fast as you were maybe when you were 21?
probably not.
You don't? I think so.
I don't know. It's hard to believe that I would be, but still effective, I guess. We'll see.
You're 32.
Yeah,
How long are you gonna play? You think?
I don't know. I got 2 more years left on this deal. It'd be great to play those out and kind of see where we're at. Me personally, how I feel, how the body feels, and then obviously it's up to the organization what they would want to do. But I would say anywhere between 2 to 4 more years. I think 4 more would be so. This one and three more would be my max. That would put me at 13 years, and I'd be happy with that, obviously. And then I don't know, at some point in time, I feel like I got to get my family back to Kansas. I don't know. I've done my gig for long enough. It's time to get the kids settled down to where we're going to be at, and let them have fun.
Yeah. What do you think on? So, you say you have 2 more years left on this contract. You're obviously you get paid good money, but you definitely take, I guess, less being in Green Bay than you would get on the open market or somewhere else. Have you ever thought of, or do you observe when guys kind of chase the big contract or go to a team that may not be as good? Because I feel like the receiver position is so dependent on your quarterback, and you have to have a guy that can throw you the ball. So, like, how aware are you that you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers throwing to you?
You're very aware. That is a huge conversation when that comes up, and not only that, but for my wife and our family, because we've signed 2 extensions here in Green Bay, a lot of it was this community and this organization. It was a perfect fit for us. We got more money than what we'll ever spend, so that wasn't going to be the biggest issue. But like you said, having a quarterback like Aaron, someone that will be here probably longer than what I will be, the best in the game with what he can do with his arms, is his mind, his feet, and everything. So that definitely matters. And we've seen it with other receivers that have left here and have struggled because there's a significant difference between what he can do and what some other quarterbacks around this league can do.
What do you think separates him? I always try to figure that out. Like, he can do it all, but like, what do you one or two things you think that separates him from everybody else?
I think at first you start with his mind. He's unbelievably brilliant in the game and outside the game, but especially in the game, he remembers things from years in the past to the date. I swear, once he sees one thing on film, he'll see it again in a game, and it triggers everything for him and what's going on. I think that just allows his body to be completely slowed down and smooth in what he's doing and not in a rush when he's out on the field. So he's able just to see it and trigger everything else to do itself. But obviously he's got great feet, great arm. But I think, to me, what he can do between the ears is what puts him a step ahead of everyone else.
What's your communication like with him in game, and how has that changed and morphed over the years from when you first started playing to now?
It's changed a lot. I think each year it gets stronger. If it's in game, in practice, in meetings, obviously your first couple of years you just listen, try to get on the same page, try to understand what he wants. And as you grow, you're able to put your own tidbit in there, or ask questions, or kind of give your thoughts. So I think, especially the last couple of years, I mean, there's communication throughout the game. I remember playing Chicago. I had a fade ball. He threw me back shoulder, and I'd beat the guy on top just based off leverage. The guy was playing half a man to a full man inside on me in press coverage, so I just went to the back pylon. He threw it back shoulder. So we just misconnected, and I came back in the huddle. I said, if we go do this again, just throw it to the back pylon, and it'll be easy. And it was. The guy lined up the exact same way, and we threw the fade, and he threw it to the back pylon, and we caught it. So that communication is huge for us. He does. I mean, we're all constantly looking at pictures on the sideline, trying to be one step ahead of the defense. And if we get that situation again, we can capitalize on it.
Yeah. How does that communicate? Like, does that just come through reps and through time on the field, like game, practice, film room? Like, how do you develop that? Because a lot of quarterbacks and great receivers don't seem to ever get on the same page.
A lot of reps, a lot of communication. I think two guys trusting each other. I think he trusts me with what I see and how I understand the game. So you build that trust there. Obviously, I trust him and what he sees and what he thinks, and we're just on the same page. And it's an open communication. It's not me telling him what to do. It's just kind of a suggestion, and we talk about it. And even Minnesota game last year, I remember we ran one play. I ran a deep stick route and broke out, and the defense flew. Everyone flew that direction and ran underneath the stick, and he threw it somewhere else. And we talked about it on the sideline. So if we do this again and we get the same coverage, I'm going to turn in and instead of run out on it. And I turned in, he hit me, and I ended up scoring a touchdown on it. So it's just those things that we just have that feel for each other and are able to communicate and see a lot of things the same way.
How much freedom does a guy like you, like receivers, have? I always wondered that when I was playing against them, and I still do now when I'm watching games. I wonder, like, when you see a certain coverage, like, how much leeway do you have, like you say, whether you turn in, turn out, or if you break a route off, whatever you may do? Like, where does that come from? And are certain plays different than others where some plays you definitely cannot turn in, I'm guessing?
Yes, there are definitely certain plays that you have strict rules. A lot of that is on the outside. If you have an outbreaker so if this guy in the slot's running an out route of any sort, short, deep, whatever out route, you have to we call it an MR, mandatory outside release. You have to outside release your DB. You have to take his eyes away from the inside receiver so he can't pick the ball off or knock the guy out. So that's strict and straightforward. Then there's other routes where the angle out of your break, it can either be high or flat based off DB. Some of our out routes you can turn in, like I was just mentioning, just based off of leverage. If the guy's playing outside and there's a void inside, you sit. And that's communication that we have in meetings. That's the repetitions we do in practice. And that's the stuff that just has to kind of be second nature and click in game. And everyone's on the same page and it looks great.
Can you think of any specific examples from either a game or practice where maybe you didn't sit or you felt like you didn't break a route off when you should have and it turned into a bad play? Oh,
man. I think nothing too bad. It didn't turn into an interception. I had one just a week ago in training camp. I turned out and stopped. And our rule, if you turn out, you have to keep moving. If you want to stop, you turn in. And for whatever reason, I stopped, and he threw the ball like I was going to break out, and it immediately triggered in my head that obviously I should have stayed on the move. And thankfully, those are few and far between. But I don't think I've messed up anything too bad to where I've caused an interception or anything. So just frustration from him that I screwed up.
How does that play out on the sidelines? Frustrated because you guys are so close, and that's the good thing. And I know McCarthy, conflict is good.
Yes.
So you need to work that out. How does that go between you guys?
Right now, a lot smoother than what it probably did 9 years ago. Because we have that trust, and he understands that it was just a blip in the screen of what I did, and we won't make it again. And just go kind of apologize and say, first you got to let him know that you screwed up. I mean, that's the worst. If you sit over there and he doesn't know if you even realize you messed up, or that you think it's him and he thinks it's you. So, we both will communicate and say it's my bad one way or the other, and we're able to move on. And that situation is going to come up again, and we want to make sure we have it on the right, both on the same page, and that way we can connect and make it work.
Do you feel like if you say that's the reason you guys are so good together, because if you do something that's out of the norm that you weren't supposed to, you instantly are aware of it and you own it?
Absolutely. If there's, I think on both ends. If it's a ball that he didn't place where he wanted to, or if it's a route that I didn't run the exact right way, that after I did it, I realized I should have done something different. You kind of have to swallow your pride a little bit and make sure the guy understands. It's all about communication. I mean, if you communicate, then because if he throws it one way and I'm thinking he's going to throw it another, and say he just didn't throw a great ball, which happens few and far between, but then the next time I might adjust my route or whatever, thinking he's going to throw it the same way. Well, he'll adjust his throw to what he actually wanted to do, and then we're off the page again. So it's all about being on the same page and having that chemistry and that communication, that because the ball can tell you a lot. When the ball is not where you think it's going to be, then I'll go up and ask, what were you thinking there? Or why'd you throw it like that? And sometimes they'll be like, I had pressure, or it didn't come out the way I wanted it to. I'm like, all right, good, we're cool then. Or they'll say, well, I thought you were gonna come out flatter or higher or whatever. And I was like, okay, perfect. This is why I did that. This is why you did this, and we'll make it work next time.
How do you feel about moving you all around? You play outside, you play inside the slot. It doesn't matter where they put you. You seem to be successful. A lot of receivers can't do that. They're either an outside guy that's running deep routes and doesn't like the noise inside. You've always seemed to thrive on the noise inside, not scared to go across the middle, and you seem to kind of be up for wherever they put you. Like, how were you always like that?
Yeah, in college I played all the positions, and ever since we've been here, I've been inside and outside. I think it's great to be able to do that. It doesn't allow a defense to really focus in on one person, and I think that's what all of our receivers have done. Is when you come in, we learn the whole concept of the play. You don't learn a certain position, you learn all three positions that way, because based off formation, you can be number one, which is the receiver all the way outside the numbers, or you could be number three, which is the guy right next to the tackle. So it just allows you to get different routes, allows you to get into different coverages, matched up against different guys. If you come all the way in number three, we get to match up against linebackers or safeties, and we feel that's an advantage for us. So I love doing it. I love mixing it up. It kind of keeps the defense on their toes, and doesn't allow them to kind of focus in if you're always lining up on the right side.
Does that seem to happen to you a lot more now than it used to, where you basically have one of their corners shadowing you all over the field?
Yeah, the last couple of years it had been that way. And it's kind of fun. It's obviously it's a lot of respect to begin with, of what they're trying to do and what they're thinking, but that's what you want as a competitor, is to go against the good ones and to battle it out for 70 plays a game or so, and you win some, you lose some. At the end of the game, you shake their hand and say good job, and you move on. So the ones I don't like is when they bring the safety over top, and then you're just feeling double covered all the time, and it's even more difficult.
And they just sit a guy over top you, so you can never really get any space. Yeah, you just if any reception you have, just dink it and dunk it. You can't hit the big one, can you?
No, and that's when you rely on the guys on the other side to do their job, and that's the great thing about having Randall and Devontae with us, and now obviously Martellus and Lance and Rich running down the middle. So the more weapons we have, the less likely they're able to do that stuff.
Yeah, can you? I'm wondering who you don't. I don't know. I can't think of like any one-on-one battles that you have like in the division. There's always like different divisional matchups that teams have. It's like receiver versus corner, and they're always battling it out twice a year. Do you have any like that are like heated rivalries?
I think we could have, but with me missing a year, it kind of because I had a really good year the year before I tore my ACL, and I think that's where a lot of the spotlight was going to come then. And then I tore my ACL, so I was out for a year. And then this last year, it kind of came back. But one in Minnesota, Xavier Rhodes, who was one of the best in the league, just got a new deal there, so he's very good. And then Slay over in Detroit, those guys have followed me before and have matched up throughout the games, and it's interesting because you kind of start learning what they do, and you make adjustments throughout the game, and that's what it is. You'll adjust to them, they'll adjust to you, and it's just like a chess match the whole time.
Do you prefer playing on one surface over another, like Detroit inside the dome? Like, do you feel faster or feel like you have more of an advantage when you're playing on field turf?
I think you feel faster. I don't know if you have more of an advantage because the turf is so good that, DBs have good fitting too. I think a lot of DBs struggle here in Lambeau getting used to our grass. Sometimes it can be a little slick, and so we always have, I think, advantage there whenever it's a little slick outside.
What kind of leader would you say you are? Because you're definitely a leader of the team, but there's all the leaders come in all shapes and sizes and different kinds. You're obviously not the Ray Lewis, get in the middle, everyone circle you and dance, but you're not scared to talk when needed, and it carries a lot of weight. Like what kind of leader do you believe you are?
I would say more action than words, the way I would go about my work, but I've had to adjust that over the last probably handful of years. Once Donald and Greg and James moved on, you kind of have to speak more, especially in our room as receivers, to make sure the young guys understand the expectations, how we do certain things, but also just understanding the playbook and what Aaron wants, because you got to be able to relay that and pass down the knowledge that you received from the guys before. But like you said, getting in front of a team, I know we kind of do that sometimes pregame. It's hard. I mean, at first you feel, somewhat a lot of pressure to try to bring something that guys are going to like, but I've kind of changed over the years. It's, you kind of focus on what you have to do as you get older. You kind of have to conserve all the energy you have in order to make it through a game in a season. But just being able to communicate with guys and make sure they're focused and know what the expectations are and what we need to do to make sure we're prepared for the game, I think is the main thing. There's certain guys, like you said, are raw guys. TJ Lang was a great one for us last year. He gave some great pregame speeches and poured a lot of emotion into them, and so those are always fun. But it's not made for everyone.
It's not. Now I'm thinking right now of.
But you gave the most emotional, like
super emotional, huh?
Screaming and cussing and
it's
going crazy.
Yeah, I'd come up with new dance moves for everybody. You're right, man. That was my thing, wasn't it? No, you can tell when a guy's not authentic. He's not being real. Like especially athletes, they see right through it. So I'm like, whatever it is, man, just be you. Whatever whatever you're gonna say.
You definitely can't fool your teammates. You might be able to fool some fans, some coaches, but the guys in the locker room, you can't fool them. They can tell, like you said, when it's fake, when it's we call it FE, a lot of fake enthusiasm going on. So you definitely can see right through that, and then it makes it even kind of harder to really buy in.
I don't know, man. Think how much the fans would eat up that FE, that fake enthusiasm. They'd be so juiced. Man, these guys, Jordy's really ready to play today.
Oh, yeah. And that's probably the enjoyable part of training camp is that you can do that a little bit. And obviously practices are open to the fans, and they eat it up. But you got to have fun as well.
Has your training camp schedule changed over the last couple years since your ACL? Like, are you on any kind of plan with as far as practice?
Not really. I practice every day. I think they monitor the reps, especially early in camp. Obviously, we know it's a long camp and a long season, so I think that's also just came with age. As you get older, they take care of the older guys a little bit more and let the young guys take the reps. But I don't think it has anything to do with the knee. It's probably just more just being a veteran guy who they just kind of have to monitor throughout camp and make sure we're fresh and ready to go for 16 plus games.
Yeah, what do you do like going into camp? Do you hear people like the old cliche? They come in with a plan of something they want to get better at each day. Like, do you have a plan going into camp at all, other than let's just get out of this thing healthy and work hard every day?
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's the first one. But there are some things the last couple of years with Luke Getzey, who's been our receiver coach the last 2 years, who's done an extremely good job for us, coaching us up on some footwork that has kind of been new to us with it within releases and at the top of routes. So that's something that I've always tried to fine tune and get better at. Because the more efficient you are with your feet, if it's out on a release or at the top of your break, the more efficient and effective you'll be, in the game. And honestly, it can extend a guy's career. I mean, if you're efficient, not wasting movement, and if you hit your break point before the DB does, there's nothing they can do about it. So those are probably the two things I constantly focus on, and then make sure you're in shape and ready to go.
Yeah, you don't. Do you ever get out of shape?
I take a good chunk of time off at the end of the season. I let the body rest. I probably don't do it. If we're done, whatever, usually at the end of January, hopefully beginning of February, I'll take a month and a half off. I'll make sure I'm, in good enough shape when we come back to the off-season program that I'm not out there throwing up or cramping up or being miserable. But I let the body rest and heal. I don't gain 20 pounds, but I don't lift weights or run for at least a month. So
After each season?
yeah, just to let the body just recover.
Yeah. How do you feel in camp now in year 10 compared to maybe year 2?
I feel great in year 10 because for me, the moment I got taken off at special teams was awesome. It's a lot less running in practice. So those are the guys that are getting ran into the ground. The guys that have to do special teams all day, do offense, do defense, do show teams. They're constantly running, but now that all I have is my, handful of plays per offensive period, I feel great coming in at the end of practice.
Well, you should. They know who they're going to get on Sunday. So yeah, you're out there to make sure you communicate and your guys are all on the same page. It's not like you're out there trying to get into football shape. You're already in shape. It's just let's just fine tune all the stuff that we've been working on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they know that, that, and as long as, everyone's ready at the right time, we'll be good.
Now I know you've actually recently, I think you talked about this. Everyone loves talking about CTE right now. You've talked about it a little bit, saying like, hey, I think, like, what are your thoughts on that? I know you're saying let's not just sit here and jump to conclusions.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought process right now. I know there's been a lot of negativity around the football and CTE and brain injuries, which obviously the collisions that we have and the sport that we play, there's going to be something going on, but I don't think they have the answers yet. I think there's the negativity in the media world is the moneymaker. A negative story will bring more news or more clicks or whatever it is than a positive story. So I saw the same, right before camp, I forget who it was now, if it was, anyway, one newspaper brought out that new study that they did on some former players, and all but like one of them had CTE, and they even in the article described it as a biased experiment, just because the ones that they looked at were all suffering from certain symptoms, and all but one had CTE. And then I saw one article that I think Ben Lieber, who used to play for the Vikings, he's actually a K-Stater as well, posted something, and it was completely, it wasn't completely different, but it was more of an open-minded thought process of, like, we can't, A doesn't lead to B and B doesn't lead to C in what we're dealing with right now. So is there probably some trauma that's going on? Absolutely. But I don't think it's a guarantee. There's a story in that article that I think there was a high school or college student or athlete that was struggling with, headaches or depression. I can't even remember exactly what, but symptoms related to concussions. And so he went to see a psychologist or whatever and talking about it. And he's like, I know I have CT. I know I do. I have the symptoms. I have had concussions and this and that. And unfortunately, the kid took his life and committed suicide. And then after he passed away, his family had his brain looked at, and he didn't have any symptoms of CTE. He had actually had something else that I can't remember what it was right now. But that's what I'm afraid of, is that people are just going to accept CTE because of the symptoms and because you played football, and lead you down the wrong path without even, and just accepting it. And like, oh, I have CTE, so therefore I'm going to become depressed. I'm going to have these issues, and that all leads to suicide at the end of the day. And I don't think that's what we need to put out there, and I don't think that's truly what's going on. So I think there's just more to study. There's more to find out. And I think people have just jumped to the conclusion on, the negativity aspect because it sold. I mean, it sold a movie. So that's where I'm at right now. I just actually had my son's flag football practice today. If he wants to play football, he'll play football. I do think the thing we've done great or better with now, and I think it'll continue to improve, is how we deal with concussions and the protocol to get back on the field, to give you time to recover. I think that's a lot better, and I think that will help significantly more.
Have you been in cahoots with your old buddy Brady Papinga on this narrative?
I have not. Have you?
Well, I'm just aware of Brady. So I know you're not out there on the web and Twitter as much as some others, but Brady is on fire on Twitter going after people about that study. It's awesome.
Like, he's against the CT, or is he?
He's just saying basically kind of what you're saying, that hey, like, you gotta be freaking kidding me, man. And he talks about someone will post that the like that article, and he'll just start killing them, saying how biased it is, throwing in all different, we're not taking into account how this guy's living off the field. You know how Brady, like, he's on a mission right now to discredit that test, and to basically, I think, just say like, hey, we don't really know. Right.
And that's what a lot of it is. And I mean, is there things we can do different? I'm not a component, and I've said this multiple times too, of 8-year-olds playing tackle football, because what they do when they do talk about the brain trauma, it's not the big one-hit concussion. It's the cumulative trauma of the brains, hitting the ground or hitting each other or whatever. And so I didn't start playing football until 7th grade. I don't know when you started, but I know a lot of guys play a lot younger. And if we're really worried about it, why don't we hold off on when we're hitting each other? And that's why if my son wanted to play tackle football right now, I'd say no. But I'm more willing to let him go out there and play flag football, learn the fundamentals, and when he gets into middle school, I'll let him start hitting people.
Now, what do you say to that? I'm sure you get people who have kids that come to you and say, oh, my kid's 6 years old. I got him in speed training. I got him in agilities on Tuesday. And they get him with these so-called performance gurus, and they think they're not going to get – they think by doing that they're going to create the next Jordy Nelson. Like, what would you tell that person?
They're getting scammed out of money. I did this. I went to one of the local Wisconsin high school award shows here, and did an interview, and they wrote an article. And I was very fortunate by going. One of the positives of going to a small school is you played all the sports. I played football, basketball, ran track, as expected. Sometimes when you get into the bigger schools, you have to start specializing and pick by the time you're in 5th grade what you want to do. And if that had been the case for me, I wouldn't be playing football in the NFL. I would have chose basketball or ran track, just because I wasn't that big until probably my junior or senior year, to where I finally hit my growth spurt and put some weight on and grew, and kind of became a better athlete and who I am, closer to what I am today. So I think they just need to go have fun and play. If it's any sport, every sport, can feed off one another. Football helps you in basketball. Basketball helps you in football. Obviously, track can do a lot of things for speed and agility stuff, but soccer, baseball, hand-eye coordination, you can't beat that. So to me, it's go play as many sports as you can, as long as you can, and then figure out once you have to make a decision. But at the age of 10, you don't have to make a decision on what you want to do.
Yeah, that's something I'm sure you're dealing with a little bit, and I definitely am, to where people think if I don't have, and my oldest is 6.5, like if we don't have our kids in all of these like I don't know how to describe like these weird programs they have for kids. Like, are you kidding me? You didn't sign them up for the U6 performance review squad, where if they can pass the first 3 levels, they'll get to join this travel team in 2 years. I'm like, an athlete's an athlete, bud. We're not going to create an athlete. Either he has that or they don't. And whatever, my daughters or my 3 boys, like I'm not going to create a professional player, like athlete. I'm going to put them in position to, like you said, play all the sports. learn hand-eye coordination, body awareness, everything, and it's going to carry over. But that's something I can't imagine with you, especially playing receiver. Everyone probably comes to you and thinks like, hey, Jordy, I'll pay you $500 an hour to teach my kid on how to get off the jam release, and the kid's like 4.
Well, not only that, how to make them faster.
Okay.
Like, how do you get so fast? Like, God allowed me to be this fast. I mean, that's all it is. Like, you can't. I mean, you might be improved like efficiency in how you run, but I hate to be rude to some people, but like, you're either going to be fast or you're not. I mean, it's the way it is. It's just, some people get lucky with genetics and God-given ability, but absolutely, it's I don't know. It's amazing, and it is. I think a lot of it is a scam. I mean, so many people, AAU, all that stuff, they make so much money off this stuff, and these poor kids get burnt out. And that's when they start focusing on basketball at the age of 6, thinking they're going to be the next LeBron James or Steph Curry. I mean, by the time they hit middle school, they're done. They can't take it anymore. They just are getting driven into the ground, and so much of it is that parents are trying to live through their kids that just because they weren't that good in high school or whatever, so they want their kid to be better. And if my kid's good, then that makes me better. And it just let them be kids and enjoy what they're doing.
You hit it right, perfect. You're fast or you're not. Like, you can work on, I guess, before the I mean, that's another whole ordeal. Is like
Oh my God,
the combine stuff. You're not going to all of a sudden go from 4.6 to 4.4. The only thing I guess you could possibly work on is trying to develop, like, if you have a horrible start, is to try to get your start better for the 40. But that's not going to help you in football. That's going to help you just for that 40. But it's probably not even going to shave any time off.
No, and if you run as a receiver, if you run a 4.4 and I run a 4.5, you realize how small of a gap that is in a click of a stopwatch. Like, that's not going to make a difference if you can't catch a ball. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it. Or if you can't stop, I've been with receivers that are so fast they can't stop at the top of a break, and there's so much more to sports than, I mean, it's a long story, but it is entertaining, and it brings in money. I mean, they've lasted the combine for a week and a half straight on everything we do. It's a show that they put on, and I mean, how many times can you bench press 225? That'll tell me if you're a good linebacker or not.
That might be the most useless test they have.
Yeah, especially, I mean, they have receivers do it.
Yeah, how many did you get?
I didn't even do it. My weight coach told me not to do it. He said it's pointless for you to do it. So I went there, and as a receiver, you actually, at that time, I don't know if it's changed, but they actually asked us who wants to do it. So it wasn't like mandatory for us to do, but it's a certain type of show, that's for sure.
Wow, I didn't know you could kind of opt out like that. As far as the linebackers, they tried to like shame you if you didn't do the bench. You had to stand up and be like, AJ Hawk, I'm opting out of bench because my elbow hurts, or like they wanted you had to like make like this big show. And I did it, and I was never a huge bench guy, and then tore my pec. I'm definitely not a bench guy after that. But you have to they want to like shame you into doing it. But then if you talk to any of the GMs, I remember talking to GMs or different people, I was like all distraught. I'm like, man, I could have got like 2 more reps, I think. And they're like, are you kidding me? Like, we could care less about that. I don't care what you bench.
Right. But it's great for TV ratings.
Yeah, well, that's why like the ratings. That's what's unreal, man. That's how. It's a great thing for you and for football that people love football so much that they will watch probably the most boring week and a half of drills and activities during the combine.
Oh yeah, it's amazing, and but people love football and they want it come whatever March. It's hard. That's the only football they can get is in March. So, I mean, like you said, the NFL's done a great job of every month there's something else going on. Once the season's over, there's, leading up to the combine, and then after the combine, there's free agency hits, and then there's the draft, and so it stays on the TV. It's, like you said, it benefits us extremely, it's once you get inside the business and truly see how it works and see guys that come in with unbelievable numbers and, can't do anything, and the guys that don't have any numbers or came from a small school and weren't even invited to the combine and come in and can just play football. So,
yeah, just you're a football player. If you're an athlete, you can kind of play any sport and be pretty good at it. Mm-hmm. And especially at the high level you're playing. But I like what you said about you've seen guys that are super fast, but they can't stop and they can't get out of a break. And that was always like, if I was covering tight ends ever, the guys that were could just fly down the field, they never they worried you about running by you, but you'd hope you have maybe a little help. but it was like the crafty vets that weren't crazy fast that would like lull you to sleep, and they could get out of their breaks so quickly, and the ball was on them where it's like I can't do anything. It's going to be a completion.
I mean, that reminds me of like Tony Gonzalez late in his career. I mean, it felt like he was hardly even moving, but you couldn't cover the guy. I mean, he was so big, he knew how to do it. Like you said, he was crafty. He was efficient in everything he did. There wasn't any wasted movement, and you can't read anything off of him. If he's running 30 yards down the field or turning at 5, he's going to look the exact same. So there's so much more to it. And honestly, I think it puts organizations in a bad situation because all of a sudden a guy comes out and runs a 4.4, and they thought he's going to be a 4.6, and now he skyrockets up the draft board. And he's still the same player he was in college. You just didn't know he ran that fast. But maybe he doesn't run that fast when he has shoulder pads and a helmet on.
And he's got some safety looking to take his head off.
Right. There's a lot that goes in while you're trying to think. Run at the same time.
I have just a couple more for you, but what do you like some of the rule changes that have come over the last 5 to 10 years that really heavily help you guys out as an offense to put 45 points on the board and have quarterbacks throw for 6,000 a year?
I do. They're very beneficial. I've said it for the last 5 or so years. I'm glad I'm not a DB or a defensive player. You guys are put in such bad situations even the awkward situation of us going down and you having to hit us in the head, and then it's a flag, and then a $15,000 fine coming next week, and it's stuff that you can't necessarily avoid. Now, is there some hits that are extremely unnecessary with the launching and trying to take someone's head off? Absolutely, but there are a lot of for instance, last playoff game when I broke my ribs, the guy hit me with his helmet right in the ribs, and everyone was calling for him to get fined. And I'm like, if he didn't break my ribs, like if I would have got up fine and didn't have broken ribs, like there wouldn't have been a question about that hit. But just because broken ribs are attached to it, everyone thinks it was crazy. So I think there's some things that are football that kind of get blown out of proportion, and you guys kind of get screwed on the fine system and the penalties, and then I think there are some things that they've done a good job of us protecting us, and now they're slowly getting to the point where we protect defensive guys a little bit with the way we're able to cut and whatnot as well. So,
how did you come back from broken ribs to play in the NFC Championship?
I was highly medicated and had a Kevlar vest on.
What does highly medicated mean? Because Green Bay is super duper conservative when it comes to that stuff.
I was joking. That was a great Twitter that certain media people posted about that I was highly medicated, which I love to play football highly medicated.
Yeah, I'm like, what is a dude taking 6 Percocets to play a football game? Like, what are you, Tiger Woods? You can't do that.
Right. No, it was crazy because when I was in the hospital, Doc McKenzie came in and saw me, and I thought I was done for the year. In the back of my head, he came in, and I was thinking, okay, if we make it to the Super Bowl, there's a chance. I mean, that's pushing almost a month away by the time time would come around for that. It's like, so maybe we can come back for the Super Bowl. And he comes in and he said, well, you broke your ribs. You're definitely out for this week, but I'm not going to rule anything out from there. And I was like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. And he said, give it about 5 to 7 days. Pretty much a week on when I got hit, my ribs instantly started feeling better. It was the craziest thing. We were down in Dallas playing in the playoff game, the incredible game that was, and I went out for halftime. Went back out after halftime. I was just catching balls with the quarterbacks just to let them warm up while the other guys were doing other things. And Brett, our backup quarterback, kind of threw it. I had to reach for it, and that used to like put my hands above my head or quick movements would like my ribs would grab me and be painful. And I did that and didn't even think about it. And I was like, wait a second, that didn't hurt. And I was like, uh-oh, I'm going to be able to play next week. So I'm telling you, it was like, I swear it was 7 days on the dot that they took a turn for the better. And, I honestly felt great all week practicing. I felt great in the game and, wish the outcome was different. But, it was crazy to think. But there was no highly medication and there was no Kevlar vest.
That was the best that they I was covering it for I was doing like a pregame, halftime, postgame show, and that was like the talk. Like, well, Jordy Nelson, he's gonna play. It was like good big news. He's gonna play, but we just don't know if he's gonna be able to be effective at all with those broken ribs. And I think either the first play or definitely the first series, you caught a ball and took a shot, and like the whole place lit up.
Yeah, right. And then what really cracked me up is I was wearing a bulletproof vest, which is bulletproof is very valuable in a game of football.
You're like 50 Cent back in the day when he's rapping. Yeah.
So no, our trainers and our equipment staff did a great job. I pretty much had just like a flak jacket on, like the quarterbacks wear. They did a good job of forming it to my body to help, absorb the blow a little bit. So
did it hurt? Did it hurt more like reaching over your head, or did it hurt more if you took a shot right to it?
I didn't have any pain at that game.
Well, that's because you were so medicated, man. They shot you up with everything.
I don't remember any of it either. I was sleepwalking. That's why I never ran straight the whole time. So, but no, like if you really pushed on them, you could feel it. But I think also lucky I never took a shot right in the ribs like that. I think if I would have got another shot like the shot I took when they got broken, it would have hurt. But I was able to get down or have them hit me on the right side for the most part. That it didn't really bother me.
Why do you have to go to the hospital with that? Just in case of internal bleeding?
Yeah, they did some scans, checked I think the spleen and and the lungs and stuff. And the best part, I was highly medicated in the hospital, so that allows you to sleep. So, but I mean, I could have went home. They gave me the option to go home that night, but I was not moving well at all. And obviously having kids at the house and me not moving well, it would have just been more work for my wife. So I was like, I'll just stay here, click the button on the side of the bed a little bit, make me feel good and allow me to sleep.
That's awesome, man. True warrior. Well, Jordy, appreciate it. We spent a good amount of time here, over an hour. I made sure, I know that was a prerequisite for you that we hit on the Gomer situation. So it's a good thing we got that out of the way.
Absolutely. It was, it's good to spread that news, man. Get the agriculture out there and inform some people.
Yeah. Were you in what is it, FFA growing up? Is that what it's called?
I was. Yeah. FFA.
So did you take your sheeps and pigs to the fair and get them judged?
We weren't in 4-H, so it's two different things there. So my dad said we'd only ask about joining during the fair time, so he'd send us down there and we'd hang out with our friends and mess with their cattle, and we'd forget about it, and he didn't have to deal with it the other 11 months out of the year. So no, we never got into the 4-H stuff, so which I wasn't too disappointed in.
All right, well, there's always post-football life to jump in there and get your little boys in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see.
All right, Jordy, thanks so much, man. Good luck this year. Everyone will be watching. We can't wait to watch you running past guys that underestimate your speed. It's gonna be fun going on in your 10th year when guys still do that. Like, oh man, I guess he's probably faster than he looks on film.
Absolutely.
All right, Jordy, thanks a lot, man.
No problem. Appreciate having me.
We're glad you could join us for today's conversation. After you subscribe to the show, head over to thehawkcast.com or reach out to AJ directly on Twitter at @officialAJHawk to recommend future guests that will help us inspire people to keep talking. Thanks again, and we look forward to speaking with you next time on the HawkCast.